On a previous show, we discussed the recent Supreme Court decision in King versus Burwell, which related to Obamacare. And I know a lot of people were very interested in the Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage. But as far as I'm concerned, the most important decision the Supreme Court issued this spring dealt with redistricting. We talk about incumbency protection a lot on this show, and I've mentioned many times that I think redistricting is the most evil of all the elements of incumbency protection, because what is generally done is the legislature, the sitting representatives, get to vote on who they're going to represent. They get to pick their own district, and they design the district with one idea in mind so that they can win. They design the district so no one wants to run against them. They design the district so they can raise the most money because they're going to win. So to me, the most heinous element of all the incumbency protection is redistricting. So before the Supreme Court this year, there was a challenge that came from the Arizona legislature, and the challenge was to the commission that the voters of Arizona had passed through a ballot initiative, and the legislature said in the Constitution of the U.S., it said the job of drawing districts is to the legislature. And the fact that this job had been handed in Arizona to an independent commission was being challenged for its constitutionality. Fortunately, and I'm 100% convinced that the Supreme Court got this one right, the decision was that, yes, there can be independent commissions that will decide redistricting, and these independent commissions can be initiated through ballot initiatives. Now, in some states, the legislatures have set up the commissions. That wasn't a question here. What was the question here was those states where independent commissions have been set up through ballot initiatives. So let's take a look at the case, let's take a look at the result, and let's take a look at why I'm a very happy guy that this is where we are today. So the case here that we're talking about is Arizona State Legislature versus Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission. Now, the fact that the name of this case has Arizona Legislature in it, and they're the ones that are bringing the case, I think tells you why this is an important problem with incumbency protection. They want to be able to draw the map in Arizona. When they draw the map in Arizona, they know they're going to win more than they're going to lose, particularly against the map drawn by the commission. Let's take a little bit, let's drop back a bit though before we get there and talk about redistricting. The main dot point that everybody has to understand about redistricting is that it occurs every 10 years, and it's a function of the census. So every 10 years there's a census, and based upon the data in that census, a redistricting occurs. Now in this case, there's redistricting for U.S. congressional seats, state legislative seats, and state senate seats. There's often municipal redistricting that follows as well. Currently there's 6 states that have independent commissions, and as I mentioned earlier, 2 of them were created through ballot initiative. One was Arizona, which is the subject of the case, and one is California. So let's talk a second here about some findings that come from a recent article in The Upshot. The Upshot is an internet-based information source produced by the New York Times. I recommend The Upshot to you. But in a recent article from The Upshot that related to this case, there was some interesting information, again, suggesting why sitting legislators don't like these commissions. So again, this relates to the congressional impact, and the source here is The Upshot from the New York Times. Let's look at Arizona. In Arizona, the victory margin in all the congressional races in the last election was 20% lower than nationwide. So you had races 20% tighter, 20% closer than they were nationwide. And of the 9 congressional seats in Arizona, 2 of them had margins that were within 5%. Now, for those of you that have watched other shows, some people look at margins of 10% as indicating tight races, and you've heard me say before, I think margins of 5% indicate tight races. So here in Arizona, of the 9 congressional districts, 2 of them were considered tight, 2 of them were decided at that level within 5%. So again, the Arizona Commission has drawn these districts, and they are tighter, and the results are tighter, and the margins are tighter, arguably than if they would have been drawn by the legislature, because there's a comparison done here between the current districts and what the last time the legislature drew districts in Arizona. California also has a commission that was a result of a ballot initiative, and Upshot did a comparison again, 2001 versus 2011, and in California the margins were 30% lower. So in Arizona, 20% lower, and California, 30% lower. Now, these are not statistically significant samples, I don't think, but they're certainly indicative of the fact that when commissions are drawing maps and they're given an assignment to make them more competitive, they are at least being more competitive. Are they as competitive as we would wish them to be? I don't know. But the fact that the Arizona legislature took on the commission in Arizona so they could get back to drawing their own seats, that really says it all for me.